Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Lead me from ignorance to the truth. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. In a sense, what we're saying is, can the knowledge or a guru be a conduit between the left-hand side and right-hand side? The truth is there. It's not a destination. It's there now. I can't see it. Lead me from what's veiling it, ignorance, to the truth. Light is there now. The unknown is not actually unknown. It is you. But the darkness is veiling it. So lead me from darkness to light. Immortality is not a destination. Truly, if the self is immortal, it cannot not be now. If it's not now, there's mortality to it, right? If the self was and the self will be, but it's not now, that means it cannot be immortal. But the conceptualization of death, coming and going of things, veils me from that fundamental instinct that I am the true immortal self. So lead me from death to immortality. Lead me is not point A to a future point B. Lead me is not doing something to get something. Lead me is the annihilation, obliteration of what's hiding that basic fact in us. That's why asatoma satkamaya, tamasoma jyotirkamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. This only reveals what you already are. We are bound by the veiling of the left-hand side, ignorance, known, death. How can we remove that veil to enter into what we are, truth, light, and immortality? Somebody asked a self-realized person, what will I become when I become self-realized? I think you'll be the same, because you're not discovering new pastures. You're discovering what you are. That's the different journey in spirituality, in Vedanta. It's nothing new, or you're not adding an extra arm to your body. You're not adding an extra emotion called the joy of the self. Emotion is again another emotion. You're not going to a travel in space or time that's different from now. It is not as sexy a journey as we assume. There'll be a kind of permanent state of some kind of elixir and happiness. Yes, but it's not that we can envision now, because we envision that permanent state of happiness as an extrapolation of what we know as happiness now. So that becomes a journey. I'm 30% happy now. I'll be 100% happy then. That 100% happiness is there today. What is holding that hostage is the question. What's holding hostage? What is already available is the journey of self-discovery. It's not like skill building, right? I play table tennis. I'm okay now. I'm not an expert now, so you can't apply this there in terrestrial skills. I'm actually an expert table tennis player. It's only me that's unveiling it. No, the skill builds over time. But what is always present doesn't build over time. It comes like a thud when you remove the veil of ignorance, the masters say. So that's why this is an exhilarating study, because this is the study that's closest to you. When misunderstood, we feel that, hey, this is too far away from me. Let me do things that are closer to me. We talk from the level of desires. My swadharma is actually this. I'll rather do that than study the self. But actually, the study of the self is the study of you. It's not the study of God. It's not the study of some esoteric future state. It's study of you. How more ego gratifying can it be, actually, even if you want to see it that way? The study of Vedanta is you. So even for an egoistic person, this has to be more luring than anything else, to be honest, because What are you studying? I'm not studying the life of Gandhi or Einstein. No, I'm studying me. So that can also be exhilarating in egocentric. The ultimate study in the world is me. Wow, I'm special. That's fine. But the study of self is just a study of you. Who are you? Therefore, um, the study of self is not something alien to you. It's alien to our mind. But when the clouds of judgment and the mind is removed, what's left is what's a priori to that. That is you at the moment. Without that, how do you feel conscious? Interesting experience. Yesterday, I was in the Tube London Underground train. I tried to play table tennis on Saturdays. So I was already tired. I played 2.5 hours of table tennis. And I was returning back home in the underground train. So I was in the train and there was this loud noise of the train creaking in the underground tunnels. And there was people talking, murmuring. And just right opposite to me in the train, we have seatings on the sides of the train. So you kind of face each other when you're sitting in the train. So just opposite to me was this overweight, a good 130 kgs or something, having a tin of Coca-Cola, right? And a McDonald's burger with extra overloaded cheese in his hand. And you can eat in the tube here. Singapore, you cannot. You'll be fined. But London is pretty boisterous in that sense. So you have Coca-Cola and the overloaded cheese there. What's the first reaction in my mind when I looked at that person? Anybody? Immediately, when you look at that person in the tube, what would you think? Jesse?
He's not taking care of his health. There are plenty of other foods. Maybe they forget that he has to make a shift in what he's taking in. Perhaps this is what I would think if I see him.
So honest answer, Jesse. So first impression is always through the lens of judgment. So that's what overcame me. I said, like, what an indisciplined man. He's already 140 kgs. Have you ever seen a fat 90-year-old? You barely see that because they don't survive that age. So you never see a fat. Have you ever seen an overweight 95-year-old? You don't. This is something Bill Maher said in his real talk a few days ago. It struck me. But these are judgments, right? So I looked at that person and said, can't even take care of himself. And in spite of this, it may not be his fault that he's 130. It could be hormonal, etc. But in his hand is the proof that it's not. A double-sized Coca-Cola and an overloaded cheeseburger shows that input is output. So that's the first thought that came. The train was creaking. The train was making its underground noises. There were people chirping around me. Kind of fell in and out of drowsiness with my own tiredness. And I opened my eyes and he was sitting in front of me. Familiarity breeds proximity. As the clouds of judgment passed away, how long can you judge an unknown person? What's the second thought you think that came over me when I looked at the same situation?
I think we may start to mirror our reflections the first thing is judging, and then the second thing is let's say if I'm disciplined and if I am obedient, how could he eat in front of me? And in some situations, if I feel really hungry, so at that time, how couldn't I have that one? So there are a number of ways to think about it. Yeah. So I think maybe the mirroring the reflections, I don't know.
He can have that as long as he shares with me. No. The burger is so tempting with that extra cheese oozing in its sides that how the heck can he have at least? I don't have. No. Well, that's the first judgment, right? Judgment is about seeing the world through my reflection. seeing the world through my value systems. Just because somebody is doing something else and I've overcome it or don't have that issue, seeing the world through my lens is all judgment. So the first thought that came, which I concluded, was out of seeing the world through my lens. I have 100 problems that he can judge probably that he's better at. He's probably more loving to his people. I mean, what do I know? But the first thing is judgment through your value systems. One or two things we are good at, that's all. But we exaggerate that and use that as the lens to see anybody, because that's all we are good at. A person who's naturally good at everything, not physically, but mentally, is not poor enough to judge everybody by that one or two things he or she is good at. So anyway, so the first thought was judge. The second thought was, the intellect kicks in, which is objectivity kicks in. So you see what's in front of you through the lens of cause and effect. So you see that, it's a series of causes that leads to effect, right? Like heart attack is often your heart telling you that I've protected you for 30 years of abuse. Now I've done my part. You've not done your part. So after a point, a little artery, how much can it take? It's a few millimeters. So it takes 40 years to clog it half a millimeter. So that's much your body is doing for you, right? Body is saying, meet me halfway, meet me midway, but you don't meet you midway. So the second thought is intellect. It's not about judging him anymore. It's looking at how cause and effects play out. It's not about him. It's about you. I was observing him and saying, it's so apparent how karma plays out. It's not about him. It's not about judging, but it's about what else can the effect be? It can't be divorced from the cause. So if you abuse your body with fatty food for 20, 30 years, it plays out automatically. There's nothing good or bad or judgment there. It's but a byproduct of what you put in. You put junk in your mind for 30 years, you will be a vicious person at the end of 30 years, isn't it? It's nothing good or bad there. It's cause and effect. It's karma, isn't it? We clutter our own minds. For example, how do we keep our house? We try to keep our house clean, isn't it? But our original house, the only house we carry with us, we live in all our life, is our own mind. Do we keep our own minds, the house that we have from birth to death, even with half the discipline as we maintain our physical house that we live in? It's a great question to ponder, isn't it? We live in a physical house, but the true house that we live in, you might have changed 50 houses in your life, but in all that 50 houses, you're living in your own mind, isn't it? Our own mind, we don't declutter. We clean the floor, we vacuum the carpets, we ensure the house is not smelling, we put some decorations around, we have a nice cushioned sofa, we have a guest bedroom to entertain guests. What about our own mind, right? So it's but karma that if we don't what happens if we don't clean up our house? The house moves towards disorder. No house moves towards order, isn't it? If only there was. Any house, physical house, or any place, it can only move from clean to dirty. Dirty to clean requires intervention. Clean to dirty doesn't require your help, sir. If you go on a vacation, come back home, what do you detest when you come back? The house has gotten dirty, there's dust on the tabletop. So you got to do a couple of hours of cleaning up, isn't it? So that's also the entropy, that any system moves towards disorder. No system moves automatically towards order. The universe keeps expanding, like astrophysics, because the system moves towards disorder, more randomness, more complication. Similarly is our mind, sir. Moving from sattva to tamas often doesn't need intervention. That's the nature of the mind. Moving from tamas to sattva requires intervention. So in our own mind, it's our house that we are housed in Fortunately or unfortunately, you're housed in your mind. But we often clutter it. So if you're able to see things as through this lens, you don't judge people, you just see how karma plays out. The train was continuing to move. We reached one or a couple of stations. I was 2 stations out. The screech of the train, the chirping of the people around me. I was once again in and out of slumber, opened my eyes, and he was still in front of me. The clouds of judgment had gone away. The clouds of logic and intellect had also gone away. How did I look at him now? Third time. There's some chance, I didn't say. Compassion, giving benefit of doubt. So when the intellect has gone away, the third time, there's a great sense of empathy that kicked in. Great sense of empathy that how can I judge him even without knowing his backstory? If I were in his shoe, where is the assurance that I would be any different? With what credibility can I judge another person? The great sense of empathy that kicks in. Active empathy, unselfishness, the benevolence, ego of benevolence. And after that, the clouds of empathy had also passed. And finally, all that's left after the declutter of the judgments through our own value system, declutter of just pure logic, declutter of benevolence. Removing all that, what's left is oneness. He and I are not different. He is me, I am him. The same self that shines through him that shines through me. I am a potentiality for him, he is a potentiality for me. There's no difference. Body is different. The self is one. You take ownership of everything in your dream, isn't it? For the dreamer, the people around him in the dream are different people that he can judge, he can empathize, he can love, he can hate. He can use logic, etc. But in truth, every iota, every morsel, every dust in the dream is all owned by the mind of the guy who's sleeping in the bed. So from a more higher point of view, everything in the dream emanates from the fiber of the same person's imagination. How can you not take ownership of everything in the dream? If you don't take ownership of everything in your dream, once you're woken up, there's something fundamentally wrong. Where else did that bad guy in the dream come from? Where else is the good guy in the dream? There's no bad and good anymore. It's the fiber of your own imagination. So when you allow the clouds of initial reactions to pass on and move on, the clouds of what we've learned as value systems to pass on and move on, the clouds of even benevolence to pass on and move on, you will automatically be left with a feeling of oneness. There's no other way. You are me, I am you. Aditya, the body is not you. You, the body, is not me. But who am I? The self in me that animates my life is the same self in you that animates your life. The wise sage like Shankara in your dream, who's giving the dreamer you advice. Where did that Shankara come from, sir? Where did his wisdom come from? Where does his knowledge come from? It all comes from you, not Shankara. Why? It's the same dreamer. It's the same waker who's sleeping. In his mind was the knowledge. Otherwise, how can the dream Shankara emanate that knowledge? You with me? The terrorist in the dream was also the infatuation of the waker who's sleeping in the bed. Otherwise, how can that rajas come out in the terrorist? Similarly, whatever qualities that are outside, the ownership of that is also yours. And from that point of view, there cannot be judgment. Judgment comes with separation. The ownership that stems from identifying with the self can only be love. Not love, not in empathy. Love as in oneness. So there are grades of reactions when we look at another person. Just continue to look at that person without making them feel awkward. And you would find that the clouds pass away, one after the other after the other. And if you sustain this without settling for any of the byproducts that come along the way as clouds, you will most often hit that jackpot of oneness. You will. It's awkward in a social setting, don't do that. But you will. Even with our own loved ones or children, we don't judge, we probably begin with that benevolent ego. But if you observe close enough, there's only oneness. The moment you feel possessive about your child, that's also a cloud that needs to pass. Then there is only oneness, because the same self that illumines everything. The self is not independent self, like I have a self, you have a self, etc. I have a mind, you have a mind, true. But the self is the same. So this is meditation. This is open-eyed meditation, right? Nididhyasana. How do we re-establish the steady state of wisdom in ourselves? In and through interaction with the world. How can you reach these grand insights just closing your eyes and sitting in a corner and in some deep thought? You can, but that requires great level of achievement to get there, like in samadhi. Not like a meditation class where we go to. That's pratyahara, that's fine. But open-eyed meditation is beautiful because insights are right in front of you. Insights are right in front of you. The feeling of oneness can be only got by looking at duality and realizing the oneness behind it, not by closing your eyes to the world and trying to realize oneness. The moment you open your eyes, oh, stupid fellow. Right? What have you realized oneness with? If you've closed your eyes and tried to meditate, I am the self, I am the self, I am the self, open your eyes, jackass. That's not oneness. The ability to keep your eyes open with the sinner and the saint, with the bad guy, with the good guy, with the stupid boss and the best boss, with the person who's cheated you, with the person who loves you, and see oneness in all of that. They are me, I am them. That is open-eyed meditation. That is nididhyasana. That is putting knowledge to action, sir. That is moving from shravana, hearing all of these wonderful things, to manana, to truly understanding these things, to nididhyasana, living in that state of steady wisdom. That's open-eyed meditation. Last time, we saw a series of things that we can actively work on, that we should remind ourselves with. We'll continue with that list today.